Welcome to another GINA program. With us, we have the Honorable Minister of Social Protection, Minister Valda Lawrence. Minister, we thank you for your time. It's really a privilege to have you with us this morning, Minister. Minister, you've spent just about a year in office, little more than a year in office. What were some of the challenges that you would have encountered over the year?
Well, first off, let me say that thank you for having me, Gina. It's always a pleasure to share information and to share some of the programs that we're doing at the Ministry of Social Protection. With regards to the past year, first I want to thank God for bringing me through that year. And I want to thank all the staff and the persons outside of the ministry, inside this country and outside this country, who have been tremendous support to the work which is being done by the ministry. Our challenges, we can say there are many if we want to see everything as a challenge. Um, for me, yes, we've had challenges. We've had challenges, as I said in the inception, with regards to the conditions of some of the places where we take care of people. We've had challenges in terms of staffing. We've had challenges in terms of being placed in that position where we had to produce two budgets and trying to be able to roll out those programs. And it had nothing to do to a large extent on time. It's rolling them out and rolling them out efficiently. Because unlike other ministers, we're dealing with people, and there is no cut and dry to that. It's about broken lives, it's about lives that are challenged. And over the past year, what we know that it was the same issues that were coming to us. We had new areas. People came to us. They didn't want to be a burden on the system for years to come. They wanted to have their water reconnected. They wanted to have electricity to their homes, but they couldn't pay for the wiring. Um, there were some persons who were in serious situation with landlords, and they have children, and it was a whole family chaos in terms of mentally and physically, and the challenge of where they are, and the everyday issues of confrontation. And they just wanted help to pay that deposit for another place where they can go and rent. Um, so we saw a lot of new things. We saw men coming to the ministry who didn't have a job, but they had an idea. They wanted to open a vulcanizing shop or a bicycle shop, or they wanted to get into some business so that they can be that man that society expect them to be. And then we continue to have the challenges with many of the cases um, within the judicial system. We're not getting the results that we wanted to get. And then we have had challenges, and we continue to have challenges with the meshing of all the actors in terms of remedying the social issues. And and they continue, but I can say that today we are at a better place.
You're at a better place.
Yes, we are at a better place.
Coming into the ministry, you would have had an idea as to what is it that you needed delivered for the benefit of Guyanese. Can you share that with us, please?
Yes, certainly. I've said it over and over. A few of the things I wanted to address was one was the old age pensioners, to ensure that we as a government be able to fulfill our mandate. We said $20,000, um, and to ensure that we kept on track to ensure that we worked towards having our pensioners having $20,000. That we have done. I think we've done that well. Um, Also to review the public assistance program, to remove it from that, which is very subjective. We claim that we're taking care of our children, but the children don't spend the money. And to look rather at the family as a whole, to move to conditional cash transfers, which will take in the entire family to move them from one position to the next. Because as a government, we wanted to focus on the family, to strengthen the family, to rebuild the family, because we know that once you have strong and healthy families, your communities will be healthy. And as a result, the nation will be healthy. So we wanted to focus on that. With regards to issues pertaining to our children, I was hoping that we can have a mapping of social issues across Guyana, and that would have given us a clear outline of how to strategize, what type of programs we need, because it's not one size fit all. And so we needed to be able to plan for each region, for various communities, and so on. And then in terms of the women, we know that the women are most vulnerable in our society, and we wanted to ensure that we can revitalize the Women of Worth program to ensure that we can give women that independence to be able to go forward with their lives, to be able to contribute to the family, and then we wanted to ensure that we can also provide Guyana with a gender policy. Because while we seek to embrace and enhance the skills and the knowledge of our women, who is the nurturer, the carer for the entire family, we're focusing on families, we also wanted to ensure that we push gender, and that because there are a lot of inequalities in our society, and we believe that if we did that, we will be able to bring the men on board, because gender speaks to both men and women, and to deal with the inequalities in our society. Because while gender focuses on inequalities, we believe that there are many, and we believe that in that particular area, we would have been able to capture our men to bring them on board. And I can go on and on to tell you about all the dreams and aspirations I have for this ministry, um, but we don't have time for that.
No problem, Minister. You made mention of a conditional cash transfer. What really is that? Can you explain to us what that is?
Okay, presently the public assistance caters for economical situations. It caters for persons with permanent disabilities, and it also caters for children, families with large children unable to provide for them. But a conditional cash transfer speaks to the entire family, in that a family may be going through a patch. You know, let us take, for instance, we're in July now, let us take someone who works in the gold industry, in the mining sector. And so they go to the interior, they're not sure they're going to get a job, they're not sure they're going to make any gold or find any diamonds or anything like that. And sometimes they come back out without anything. And that family's expectation that daddy's coming, and when he's coming, he's going to fulfill all these dreams and so on. Um, they're disappointed. Daddy doesn't have any job to do because he doesn't have another skill. And so the pressure builds up in that family. And then we hear about domestic violence, child abuse, and all of these things. The conditional cash transfer will cater for such a family to help to transition them from that period to where they can once again be economically strong and take care of their family. But in the meantime, we take care of them. Daddy will be sent to learn a skill. So the next time he comes out and things did not work out for him, he can utilize that skill. He can have skills as an electrician, as a masonry, as a heavy duty mechanic, whatever. We will use our Board of Industrial Training program to be able to steer him there while we give that assistance. And the same can go for the woman. And that is basically the cash transfer. So the entire family benefits from it.
Thank you so much, Minister. So it's a comprehensive approach to delivering services to the Guyanese people to truly have the kind of effect that government intends for it to have on their lives.
That's right.
Do we need special legislation for that conditional cash transfer?
I believe that if we want to, as a country, to move forward and to set the foundations, these things must not just be a political program. And so, yes, I do believe that we should legislate for these things. It becomes part of our law. And irrespective of which government is there, I mean, they can make amendments and so on, they can improve it. But I think we need to set those things within our law.
And I can only imagine that so far you're already laying the groundwork to have the necessary legislation implemented or in place so that we can see the conditional cash transfer taking effect.
Well, let me tell you, we're not that far as yet. The first thing we need to do is to ensure that we have our persons trained and that our staff have a full um, knowledge of what is conditional cash transfer. Presently, we're looking at Belize, we're looking at Jamaica, and we are hoping to look at Brazil because Brazil have one of the longest standing conditional cash transfer program.
Understand. Thank you so much, Minister. Earlier, you mentioned the gender policy, and we have been hearing of the development of a gender policy. Where are we with that?
Oh, we're quite some way with that. Um, Presently, we are about to sign an MOU with UNICEF and UN Women so that they can come on board and assist us technically and also for us to go to the various communities in the hinterland to have an interaction and have the views of our citizenry in those locations. So we're about to start the rounds, as you would say, in terms of getting people involved and sharing with them our proposals.
Understood. And for the women, we know that there exists the Woman of Worth Wow program. How is that program rolling out so far on the year watch, and what other programs might be in place for vulnerable women?
Okay, well, the Women of Worth program is an inheritance. It is a very good idea. It's a very good program because it caters for our single parents. And somewhere along the line, while that program was being crafted, thought was not given to single men who are parents. So it specifically speaks to women. And I would say satisfactorily. This program, we have been able to give some grants, um, and we have also been able to steer some women towards having loans. Um, and basically, you would have had to be doing whatever you were doing if you were to qualify for the loan at least 4 months prior. So that puts some of the women at a disadvantage. But I can tell you, I'm very happy that several of those women, I have been to their place of business and I am so happy for them. I'm so happy at what is happening, and a few of them indicated to me that they're going back now for their second loan. So I believe that we're on the right track. All we need to do is get some more money, Minister of Finance, to put into that program so that we can be able to go to the far-flung regions. Because in many of those places where there are no banks, no banking facilities, it would be very hard for us to deal with loans. So that is where the grant program will kick in.
So it's ensuring that we have a, a strong financial system in place in those areas so that at least they can be able to benefit too.
That's right. And I must say to you that by the end of June, we will have the new program on board, which is called Power, right? And this will cater for married women who are separated, who are widowed, and men So what we're doing, the deficiencies of WOW, we're picking it up on the power. And so we have a few men already lined up, waiting to be able to be processed and get their loans or grants so that they can roll out their program.
Minister, I can tell you that I'm particularly happy that I hear men being included because in the past there was a perception when we speak of social protection or the provision of social services, it only applied to women. It was as if, men, we just forgotten. Men, you're expected to tough it out, hump it out, do whatever. But the fact that I'm hearing that we have men on board, we have programs geared at assisting the man in terms of being able to take on that leadership role in his home, that makes me happy to hear, Minister. Coming to the domestic violence aspect of it, there should have been an establishment of a center. What is the status of that center?
All right, it's a unit, not a
It's a unit.
center. Um, this domestic violence and sexual assault unit. Let me first say thanks to the Canadian government through the High Commission for assisting us to furnish that department. So that department is there waiting to be people. We've already made our representations to the Public Service Ministry, and that presently is being processed so that we can be able to have those vacancies advertised and have those persons placed there. Once that is done, then we'll be able now to have the task force in place because the unit is there to carry out the work of the task force. So the task force is made up of ministers, and and so very quickly we can put that in place. But if we don't have the staff to support that task force, then nothing will happen. So once again, we're looking at June at the half year to be able to have this particular unit up and running and the task force up and running. And we want to review the act. We want to review the act because we believe that there are some changes, not only in the way that the investigations and so are being done and who are allowed, persons that are allowed to be part of that. But also, we believe that even the composition of that task force, having all ministers there, I think that it's an indictment because ministers, we all have so much to do and so many responsibilities. I think that there are other players that ought to be on board. But that is my thoughts. And I like to share and I like to listen from the technical people and the experts out there. So going forward, that is what we will be doing in the third quarter.
That's right. And these forms part of measures that you are taking to tackle the issue or address the issue of domestic violence.
Well, yes, it is, and it's a very important aspect. But while we're waiting to get all of that intact, I want to say this. We have systemic problems. When we talk about domestic violence, yes, the Ministry of Social Protection plays a pivotal role, but there are other agencies that have responsibilities for addressing domestic violence. You have the Ministry of Health, you have the Ministry of Education, you have the Ministry of Legal Affairs, you have the Commission of Police, and I can go on, and the University of Guyana. And recently, with the development of the community development um, officers, we have now looked at that agency as one which should be playing a pivotal role because they're dealing with the grassroots, they're dealing with communities, and that is where the problem lies. And we want to be able to address those. And so I can tell you that just last Monday, we had a breakfast meeting with all of those players because we would like to roll out a pilot program to see where the challenges are in that loop for each and every one of those players. And so that when we seek to do a national program, that we will be able to strengthen those weak areas. And so we have met, we have had UNICEF at the table and UNFPA, and there were some suggestions which came at that breakfast of other players that should be on board. And I can tell you one such player is the media. And so a committee has been formed, and they're going to sit to come up with that pilot program, and the other players will be invited to be a part of that committee so that we can be able to get our act on the road together as a group and not singularly.
That makes sense, Minister. Shifting our attention to the Hugo Chavez Center for Rehabilitation, how is that center doing? We've heard that they might have been underutilized and a number of things, but can you speak to that, please?
Yes, certainly. And I must say to you that this is one area where I have been challenged in terms of what I wanted to have happening by the end of the year, and so on. But sometimes, you have a vision, and not everybody can capture that vision as readily as you do. The Hugo Chavez Center has been underutilized for some time now. I think people scoff at the distance, and people did not see the importance of it being placed where it is placed, why it is placed, for the psychological and sociological effects and so on of these people. But since coming into office, I must say that we have had some movement in terms of what we wanted to do. And what we basically wanted to do was to use the night shelter as the conduit where we can be able to capture persons from there and transfer them to the Hugo Chavez Center for rehabilitation. Money is always the issue, and money has been a hindrance to us. We have moved forward, however, and I'm very happy with the help of the FAO, and we will be having our chicken project on board. As a matter of fact, we're just waiting now to get the chickens and so on. So that's almost 100% in place. We have some residents there who have worked or had rare chicken sometimes in their time in their life, and so they're eager to get on board with that. So that is taken care of. But when the Hugo Chavez Center was built, the idea was to have a medical practitioner there because you have persons who go there with all sorts of medical conditions. And that did not materialize. And so basically, I believe that the persons who were placed, they didn't see the vision. And we have now moved to the point where we have just installed a committee um, of peers from Region 5, and they are now sitting to evaluate what is there, and they are going to come up with a program. Because the intention was that every day when a resident wakes, he or she knows that today is Monday, this is what I'm going to be doing. That there's a program there, because that's what we need to do. We need to help them to be able to understand and to initiate that life is not airy-fairy. You don't just sit and the days pass you by. That you have to have an agenda, you have to have an objective, and you work towards that. And we're hoping that by doing that for them, that they will be able to become self-reliant, self-sufficient, and they can now move on. Previously, it was that you come to Hugo Chavez and that's it.
Yep.
And we're saying to them, no, that is not it. You will be here for a period, you will be evaluated, you will see the medical doctor also, and you will have a plan on how you exit Hugo Chavez back into the society. And I think the persons whom we have on this committee, I think they get it. They have a lot to tell us because they live in the community and they see some of the things that occurred previously. And I believe that we are going to be on stream to get our objectives achieved.
Thank you, Minister. You mentioned some programs for reintegration. We know that that is being really developed. But in your mind, what do you think are some of the key programs that should be offered?
Well, I think the first one should be agriculture. Um, we have been lately scoffing at agriculture, but I believe it's the bedrock for all of us. Kitchen garden can sustain you, and you don't need much to invest into that. So that is the first thing. And then the second thing, we're looking at poultry rearing, all forms of poultry rearing. And then there are other forms of agriculture. It doesn't have to be vegetables or greens, but you could go into horticulture. Every week we have plane loads of what we call fresh flowers coming to Guyana. Um, when I was a child, we would go around to the neighbors and you would purchase roses and all sorts of things to make a bouquet. But today, those things are extinct. Very few people plant those things, but there is a demand. And those are some of the things we're hoping that with partnering agencies that we can get out there. Take, for instance, right within the center, there is a gentleman who is a plumber, and as far as possible, I've been trying to get them. Look, if we have these people with these skills, let us start to utilize them. We have another one who's an electrician, and we believe that these persons, if we can get them now connected to our BIT program within the region, it's not going to cost the ministry anything much, but they will be able to begin to get that self-worth, that they're needed. They have a skill that they can be able to earn and help themselves and so. And I'm hoping that they can go out there and find wives and husbands and start families and live a good life. That's my hope for them. Maybe not all of them may be able to do that because we have captured their situation too late. But I think the majority will be able to do so. And the same for the night shelter. As a matter of fact, with this change in administration at the night shelter, I must say to you that the works, the rehabilitation works, um, which were carried out at the night shelter, that 80% was done by the residents there. Yes, yes. So leadership has a key role to play in it too.
That's true, Minister. But you touched on the night shelter. Let's go there a bit. We recall you visiting the night shelter, and you found that the meals were simply atrocious. Bottom line. How has that been? We saw recently that there were tenders available for the provision of meals. What can you tell me in that regard?
Personally, I cannot say about it, but I can tell you what the administrator said to me. She said that she can eat the food and that from time to time she would taste the food, she would have a meal just to ensure that the quality is retained. And she's very happy with what she's having now. The residents are happy, and that makes me happy too. And since I visited, I can tell you last December, with the assistance of the corporate society, especially them Toko, you were able to have a Christmas lunch there for the residents. And so I can tell you the place, the change, the dramatic change in the conditions. We have new bathrooms, new toilets, and so on. So the dramatic change um, that has taken place there, I must give thanks to the new administration, Strater, and the Director of Social Services.
Thank you so much, Minister. In keeping with this level of change that we're seeing at that institution, can we expect other levels in the sense, coming through training for the persons who will have to provide services or for the staff of that institution?
Yes, certainly. And I think the president, from the inception, sent that message loud and clear that we need to train and retrain. And yes, the staff of the Ministry of Social Protection, they are not exempted from that. And I can tell you, presently I'm working with the PALMS institution, with the administration and the staff. It will take me a couple months, but I'm working there with them. And the staff themselves last week said to me, Minister, we need training. And I think that was very good coming from the staff, recognizing that, hello, I have much more to learn, you know? And I have also been speaking with a few persons with lots of experience in these particular fields. And so I'm hoping that for our next budget, that we will have a chunk in there for training. Because one of the things we are encouraging is the staff to go back to school, go and do something so that you can be able to bring those experiences to bear where you work and enhance it. And I must say to you that this year we have had four PCAs who were accepted for the nursing assistant program at the Georgetown Hospital. Wow. And we're very happy, and we're working with ways to encourage our staff to go back to school.
Now, they go to the nursing program. Is there a possibility of them returning to the shelter to provide an even greater level of care?
Well, I am working with the personnel and my PS through the Ministry of Public Service to ensure that we don't lose those persons, that we hold them, because even as they learn, they can come back on the job and teach the others what they have learned. And I think that is a way of saying to the other staff, you can do it too, you know? And so we want to ensure that we encourage persons and we use these persons as an example of who you can be and what you can achieve, and how we as a government, how we are going to embrace these persons who seek to go and bring more knowledge and experience into the areas they work.
Thank you, Minister. The, your ministry was working along with the project Restore Guyana to help the homeless people. How has that been coming along so far?
Well, we are at a good point, let us say that, the last time we met. And the Jubilee celebrations we have, I have not heard of another meeting as yet. But at the last meeting we met, what we did was sought to bring the other players on board. We had the Minister of Health, um, we had a representative from the Minister of Public Security. As a matter of fact, the meeting was held in his boardroom.
Oh,
And we also had a representative from the Guyana Police Force. The Minister of Health proposed a building where these persons can be taken to so that they can be evaluated. The minimum is a 6 weeks evaluation before we can be able to decide whether these persons can go back with their families or whether the state needs to provide a place for them, like the Hugo Chavez or the night shelter, so that they can have that transition in their rehabilitation. That is where we left off, and that committee, the head of the committee, their next step was to approach other agencies like Food for the Poor and so on, to look at beds and utensils and so on. While those persons will be housed and evaluated by the medical personnel, the Ministry of Social Protection has undertaken to have uh, the meals and so on will come out of our budget. We will provide all of that. So we are collaborating on that. And I'm hoping very soon that we'll be able to hear from the head of the committee to know where we are in terms of those preparations.
Understood. What are we doing for our youth, especially to address those that may be delinquent?
Okay. We basically look at those youths who got themselves into some trouble. I don't like to use the word delinquent.
Thank you.
Some of them follow friends. Some of them they're swayed by the music and the TV, and they have all these thoughts that they can be like this person or that person. And so on. Some of them just definitely don't have parental guidance, while others don't have a family structure to turn to. And so the issues are numerous out there. But I can say to you that with the use of the alternative sentencing that has now been placed within the purview of the probation department, and I can tell you, I have two officers who are not sitting at their desks, who are getting out there to businesses and talking to um, entrepreneurs and so about having these kids there, talking to the Ministry of Youth and Sports about getting these kids involved in activities and so on. And I can say that for the few kids that have been transferred to the probation department because of those circumstances that they are involved, um, their weekends are dictated by the probation officers, so we keep them active, keep them doing something, going somewhere, and so on. And my last report is that many of them they're enjoying it.
Yep.
They look forward to coming out.
That's right.
And so we have to now evaluate at the end of the period, because this is something new. Evaluate that and to see whether we would like to now run a pilot in conjunction with the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sports so that we can be able to capture our youths in a rounded way. And to go a bit further than that, to look at the family structure. What is happening in the family that would allow these youths to get entangled in various issues. With regards to our pensioners, I'm accused of only looking after the pensioners. But I've been fighting this issue since I sat on the opposite side of Parliament. Basically, we have a system problem. Our problem within our system has several loopholes, and we have to ensure that we deal with that. But when I look at the system, there's too much paper, and paper is traveling not in a systemic way or systematic way. It is not traveling in a secure environment, coming from offices all around the country, and there is not a proper system in place to be able to gather the information, to process the information. So as we go forward, we are creating a database. So we have what you would term a miss. That's what we have. Last year, I said that one of the things the ministry is going to do is that we're going to digitalize the pension system and to ensure that we make it less cumbersome for our workers and also for the pensioners. I'm happy to say that we have looked at our database. It is not one that you want to share with people. It was a nightmare. And we have a database now that has been sanitized with the assistance of the head of GCOM, Dr. Suraj Bali, and we are at that stage where we're ready to change our system within the ministry. Secondly, We have just had a discourse with the Minister of Telecommunication and her staff of GPOC to ensure that we can collectively run a pilot of this electronic program. And so, once again, June is our end mark, and we're hoping that by the end of June, the 1st of July, we can be able to run a dual system within a region to see how that goes. And then we'll take it the next month to another region, so that by next year, when we are going to deal with the payment of pensioners, we will be able to do so on the coastline electronically. In the hinterland, it's a different ball game because of the geography and how persons live far apart from the center of the villages. And that is something we're hoping that while the IT program is being rolled out on the coast, that we can have a review internally in the various hinterland regions to see what type of program electronically would work best. So, what are the support mechanisms within the hinterland that will allow us to do so? With this program coming fully on stream, it means that pensioners will no longer be issued with a book of 12 vouchers. Rather, they will turn up to the post office and they will use their national identification cards. And once that process, that transaction is done, I can tell you, immediately at the head office, we will be able to see who has cashed their pension, and we can have real-time information as to how many pensioners receive pensions in a particular place. And that will also help us with our reconciliation, because then it would be real time, we have all the reconciliations done and so on. And so we're hoping that we can roll out this program. It's going to give us much more than that, but I'm just capturing the basic things. We're hoping that we can really get on board and have this roll out. I think that would be such uh, um, a good thing for our pensioners, because it means that come December they don't have to leave their homes and go somewhere to collect a pension book. It's going to take away that part of the cost from our budget. We can put it towards something else. And we're hoping that in that way that we will be able to assist our pensioners and persons who are going to uplift pensions for a pensioner. We will be able to capture their information too, because so many times we have pensioners come to us with difficulties. They've lost their books, they cannot find their books, and it takes them some time because of the policy to be able to reissue a book. And we don't know what is happening because it takes such a long time to reconcile. So somebody can steal a book here and go to another village, another community, another region, and then cash that book, and it will take some time for us to get that. It is also going to help us with accountability, which is very lacking, and we need to do that. Thirdly, it's going to help us with regards to the time our probation officers spend in taking books out into the fields. It means that that particular task will be removed from the probation officers, and the probation officers will now have the time to do visitations. Is Walter Lawrence still alive? Why is Paul Lawrence cashing Walter Lawrence's voucher all this time? Does she really live in Guyana? Or is she residing somewhere else? And all of these things we will be able to capture that we cannot capture now. And that is what I'm looking forward to. I'm very certain that the number of persons that we are catering for, that the number will go down. And I'm also looking forward to the fact that we'll have timely reports. And so we'll be able to, with assistance of the Ministry of Citizenship, be able to stop payments, which we cannot do now, it takes a while, to stop payments immediately. We can block out a name. When we would have received the information that this person is now deceased, we can immediately block that name.
That's right.
And that is what we're looking forward to.
That's right, Minister. You did mention we will get to the issue of double dipping shortly because I believe you're very passionate about it. But that aside, it takes away from those who are in Guyana being able to truly benefit. But in the meantime, what will be done to ensure that those in the hinterland can receive their pensions in a sufficient time?
Well, as I said, the banking system is an issue in the hinterland areas, and I'm very happy when I know that the banking industry is now expanding to these areas. Um, Secondly, security is an issue. Once we can be able to have a system which we can rely on to a large percent, I'm quite certain that we will be able to use private entities to assist us in the hinterland area in terms of providing the service of paying pensioners. I think we cannot continue to rely wholly and solely on the Guyana Post Office Corporation because their services only extend to so much. But in the hinterland areas, we have business persons who have established businesses and they have cash that they will have to think about security to take it down to Georgetown or to the nearest banking zone to be able to secure their monies. And we can look forward in the future to enter in partnerships with these persons to make them agents so that we can be able to service um, our seniors in the hinterland. We have to bring the service to them,
That's right.
and not have them having to travel miles to go to uplift the pension. And that's why we have the issue right now. I saw in the papers mention of two shows collecting pensions. And yes, that is true. Because if one really knows the geography of the hinterland, they will know that in many instances there is no way some seniors can walk for days to come to the point where pensions are being distributed.
That's right. For example, we saw in Cato, in Madia, how mountainous that is,
Yes.
and how long a journey on foot lasts just you to get to a central location.
Yes.
But Minister, on the issue of double dipping, so to speak, what can you tell us about it?
Okay, last year we took this matter up with the staff, where we have persons who are in the systems who are residents in foreign countries, but they're still collecting their pension books. We indicated to the staff that where those books are issued with the knowledge that the officers will be held responsible for that and they will be surcharged. But then we have persons who believe that it is their right to live in a foreign country and collect their pension here. And we're saying to them, no, that is not going to happen. And in the hinterland regions, we know that there are persons with more than one ID card. We know that. And so that's why we have sought, in the first instance, to clean our database. To clean our database. Because while we have many Guyanese who would like to see the system work and to ensure that it is done in a transparent manner, there are others who just want to abuse the system. And we have had that. And so we have addressed the issue of our database, and we will continue on the ground to address the issue of persons who are collected in two places. We have come across instances where a person would have registered in one region and then they're also registered in another region. And so as we go along, we're striking those persons off the list, and they will have to present themselves to the officer to ensure that that is done. Notwithstanding that, going forward is for a census. Going forward, we have already in paper mechanism and program which we can roll out to do a verification process. And while we don't have the money now, we're prepared. We're hoping that we'll be able to do that in several regions come next year. Um, Money's being provided in the budget for that. And that will be able to pay for itself when we would have been able to clean up the register of those persons who are presently double dipping into the system.
So I understand completely that if you reside overseas, no pension. What if somebody returns? Is there a requirement that they may have to meet?
The present law states 12 years. You have to be domiciled, and before you can be able to um, have pension again. But there are cases where persons may go just for a vacation, they're not a resident, um, and they have medical issues. Some persons are given the opportunity by their families to go abroad and have their medical conditions addressed. And so, as a result of that, they spend a long time outside of Guyana. What we are doing, we're not so harsh as to the conditionalities that may prevail around such persons. We've asked them to bring their records, bring their documents. We have done an analysis to see whether the facts presented before us, whether these things are true. And in many instances, we have restored the receipt of their pensions to them because we know the Guyanese scenario, right? If you send and you bring mommy, then everybody gets a chance to have mommy and daddy at their place for 3 months or 2 months and so on. And, um, and then they're not in Guyana to uplift their pension book. So we look at all of those conditionalities.
Thank you, Minister.